Hello and welcome to the channel, and I am here for a ranking video for you guys. And for this ranking video we're going to be ranking the albums from Anthrax. Now, I've never done an Anthrax ranking before on this channel, which is kind of surprising at this point that I haven't done a ranking for this band yet. So I figured that now would be a good time to rank this band's discography from worst to best. Now keep in mind, we're not going to be including EPs or covers albums or anything like that. We're just going to stick with the main studio records. Now, also keep in mind, the bottom two I actually don't have in my collection yet. I would like to, at some point, collect all Anthrax albums, but the bottom two I don't have yet, or arguably the bottom two of my ranking. But at the bottom, I gotta go with Volume 8. Now, this is an album that I've only really listened to once, and I can say with confidence that it is their weakest album. I mean, it's got this weird vibe to it. I don't know what it is about it that I'm just not that crazy about. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the worst thing that I've ever heard. Like, it's it's not as bad as albums like Lulu or anything, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of this record. So, Volume 8, it's got to be the weakest, for me anyways. I know it's not the weakest for some people, but for me it is. So, Volume 8 is what I have as the weakest. Now, next up, we got We've Come For You All, which is the last album with John Bush on vocals. And this album, it's not bad. It is a little bit better than Volume 8. But yeah, my main problem with this album is just the replay value, but it overall isn't too bad, though. It's not that bad of an album. But yeah, it's definitely not one of their best. Like I said, I would like to get these two albums for my collection eventually, but there's a reason that I wasn't in a hurry to get those two, because they are at the bottom for me. But they're not terrible, though, but they are some of their weakest. But next, we got Stomp 442. Interestingly enough, I've seen some people say that this is a top 5 Anthrax album, which is kind of shocking to me because, well, obviously that's pretty unpopular, and I personally don't agree with that. But this album, it's not bad. I mean, it's not one of their best or anything, but it's not a bad album. I think it's pretty good for what it is. I mean, there's some really good songs on here, like Fueled and Nothing. These two songs in particular are actually pretty good. Those are songs that I think are not too bad. They're actually really good songs, in my opinion anyway. Yeah, I've seen some people say that this is Anthrax's weakest album, but I don't agree. I still think Volume 8 is their weakest, but Stomp 442, I think it's a pretty good album for what it is, but it's just far from one of their best. So next, we got the first album with John Bush on vocals, and that is Sound of White Noise. I know some people would have this album a lot higher than I do, but the reason that it's not as high as it is for some people is mainly just due to replay value. Like, if I want to listen to Anthrax, I'm going to listen to Joey's era. But this album is still pretty good, though. I still really like this album. I mean, you got great songs on here, like Potter's Field, Only, and Room for One More. I mean, these are classics. But yeah, Sound of White Noise, it's a good album, but again, it's just not one of their best in my opinion. But I do like the album. I do think it is a good one, though. So next, we got Worship Music. Obviously, a really good return for Anthrax and Joey on vocals. This is his comeback album with Anthrax. And yeah, this is a good album. I mean, the replay value is not the strongest, but it is good, though. I still think it's a very solid album. It's still very good. I mean, there's some really good songs on here. I'm Alive, Fight 'Em Till You Can't, Revolution Screams, just to name a few highlights. Yeah, this is a good album. It's not one of their best, but I do think it is a good album, though. It's got pretty good production and everything like that, so I think it's a really good sounding album. I like it, though. So next, we got For All Kings, which is the latest album. Still waiting on that next Anthrax album, of course, but yeah, For All Kings, it is a good album. Now, of the two albums with Joey's return, this is probably the better of the two, in my opinion anyway. I just think that this album has stronger replay value, just stronger songs, and just the way that some of these songs flow and the way they're structured and all that. I mean, these songs are just really well made. I mean, you got really great songs like Breathing Lightning, Evil Twin, Blood Eagle Wings. I mean, Blood Eagle Wings is maybe my favorite song of Joey's return with Anthrax. You also got Zero Tolerance, which is a really good closing track. But yeah, pretty solid album. I mean, it's not one of their best albums, like it's not top 5 or anything, but it is a pretty strong album. So for all kings. Next, we got the album that actually got me into Anthrax, and that is State of Euphoria. Yeah, I know some people might say it's not a very good start when getting into Anthrax, but I like the album. I do think it is a very solid album. It's a very strong album for sure. And yeah, so this was my introduction, so there's a little bit of bias for this album. Just a little bit, though. I mean, I can understand the criticisms and all that for this album, but I do think it is a pretty strong album, though. I mean, I like Be All, End All, Out of Sight, Out of Mind, Who Cares Wins. These are just a few highlights, but yeah, really good album. I like this one. So, State of Euphoria. Next, we got Anthrax's debut album, Fistful of Metal. This is an album that's actually grown on me a lot recently. I remember in my first listen, I wasn't really... I don't know, it just wasn't doing it for me as much. I don't know what it is about it, but it's really grown on me. You know, especially with some of these songs like Soldiers of Metal. I mean, Soldiers of Metal is just, it's fantastic. There's also other great songs on here, like Metal Thrashing Mad. I mean, these songs, just really good stuff. I mean, it's a classic at this point, so yeah, I mean, I just really love the raw, heavy energy of this album. I mean, check it out if you're into thrash metal and haven't heard it yet. So next in the ranking is Fistful of Metal, which is their debut. Really strong debut album, too. So next, we got Persistence of Time. This is a very strong album for sure. I mean, I've seen some people say that this is not one of their best, but I also see some people say that this is one of their best. I have the regular edition, and I also have the reissue. But yeah, I mean, definitely a great album for sure. I mean, I think it's one of their best, even though there's some people that might not agree with that opinion. I mean, I think the production's very good. I mean, this was also the last album for a little bit to feature Joey on vocals. But there is some good songs on here, like Time, Keep It in the Family, Belly of the Beast, One Man Stands. I mean, there's a lot of solid material on this album, but yeah, so Persistence of Time, definitely a great album, and it's got to be top 3 for me. It just has to be. So at number 2, we got Spreading the Disease, and this is a very solid album. I mean, this is the album where I feel like they sound most like traditional heavy metal. Like there's quite a few songs on this album that sound like traditional heavy metal, like similar to maybe Judas Priest or Iron Maiden maybe. There's a few of these songs that are like that, and I can appreciate this album for that. It's some of these songs do have that traditional heavy metal inspiration going for it, which I can definitely appreciate, but I would still say it's a thrash metal album. There's a lot of great songs on here, like AIR or Air, however you want to say it. You got Madhouse, The Enemy. I mean, these songs, just fantastic. I mean, a lot of great songs on here, so for my second favorite Anthrax album, I gotta go with Spreading the Disease. Now at number 1, this album easily had to make number 1 for me because it is obviously my favorite Anthrax album, but not only that, I think it is one of the greatest thrash metal albums of all time. It's obviously a classic within the genre, and at number 1, I am of course talking about Among the Living. In my opinion, there's not a weak song on this album. I mean, there's so many great songs, like the title track, Caught in a Mosh. You also got Indians, One World. Just so many solid tracks on this album. I mean, those are just some favorites of mine, but yeah, the production and everything about this album is fantastic. And I mean, if you're a thrash metal fan, haven't heard this album yet, do yourself a favor and check out this album right now. I mean, it's a classic within the genre, and it's a fantastic album. I mean, has some of their best songs, and I think that this is Anthrax's best album. So, at number 1, Among the Living. Well, there you have it. That is my ranking for the Anthrax discography. Let me know what you guys think. How would you rank the Anthrax discography? Do you agree with my ranking, or is your ranking different than mine? Feel free to let me know what your ranking would be in the comments. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.